All right. Here we are, Mr. Andy.
Howdy.
Rock it out. Hello.
My micro impression.
That's right. Micro. Man, I like Micro. He has this weird podcast thing with his mom, like talking about just some of the strangest things.
I haven't listened to that yet.
It's pretty funny. My wife introduced me to it.
Gotcha.
But I like Micro.
Now, his sweat pledge is really cool. That's one thing that's worth seeing for sure. If you ever.
What is it?
His sweat pledge. It's basically like his 10 commandments of work, like being a hard worker.
Okay.
And it's different things. And he has a YouTube video for each one, for all 10 of them. The first one's gratitude. And he just talks about how he was almost killed in Baltimore when he was in the Baltimore Opera. And he was driving home late, and the traffic light changed. And he's like, all right, I'm watching, and I can see that I've got a red light. And I see the other one turning yellow. He's like, all right, so I'm just going to keep cruising. And when it turned green, he was right there at the intersection, just going 35 miles an hour. And as he goes through the intersection, all of a sudden he sees the flash of headlights in his peripheral, and he feels a shudder on his car. And he pulls over and realizes that it was a truck doing 90 miles an hour through downtown Baltimore at 1 a.m.
Oh, my God.
And it took off the hitch on his truck. And he gets out shaking. He goes there and sees his hitch is missing. And he just, oh my God, I'm shaking and I couldn't drive home. And then he realized that if I had just hesitated for a second, I'd have been dead, because he would have been in the intersection a split second later and been T-boned. And so he just said, you know what? Wow. Life's a gift. And first thing on my sweat pledge is gratitude, because all of us we don't know how long we're going to be here or what we're doing. And I was blessed with being in the greatest country in the world. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to make the most of it. And it's just really cool. So every single one of his 10 commandments
I'm going to look that up, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sweat pledge.
The sweat pledge. I like it. Mike Rowe. So, man, Andy, I'm just really thankful and glad that you came.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, I appreciate the invite. It means a lot.
Well, and I was talking to Megan a little bit, and I know whenever we have gotten together at events or just different things, that I love that you guys are kind of like down to earth, and you guys are really, I don't know, your children are in the wraps, right? Your babies are in the ring slings, right? So my wife and I, that's what we did too. So it was really funny that our wives connected at those kind of events and stuff. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, the baby wearing.
Yeah. So. Man, I'm just, and the knowledge that you shared with everybody. So Andy is he's the last guest of tonight for our first full day here at the retreat. And do you want to tell a little bit about why did you choose the topic that you chose?
Well, it's really hard to find something that's applicable to everybody that's business related. So I mean, everybody's got diverse backgrounds, and some people have way more experience than I do in way different areas, particularly business. So. Ours is real estate related. So my goal is just to talk about self-directed IRA investing, because that's what I know. And that's been my focus for the last couple of years. But just also, it might have been a different thing that people don't typically do. So for me, it's worked out for us, and anybody can do it. Loaning money out of your IRA or within your IRA to make a return that you don't have to worry about the stock market. And the IRS, the tax code from 1974, tells you how you can do it, how you can invest in categories of other things like precious metals or buying real estate, and you can buy notes and loan money to other people that are buying a house, and you can make a good return. And even if it's only 5 or 6%, it's still way more secure than going in the stock market. And it's definitely the kind of return that you get, say, on the CD at 0.025% negative money.
It's freaking horrible.
Yeah. So if you loan money out to an investor at 6%, maybe even 5%, you're still doing way better than what you're going to get in a CD.
Yeah.
And your money's tied up in a CD, and you can't get it out without a penalty. So, I mean, that bank is just going to turn around and loan it out to somebody at 6 or 7%, or right now 5%. But let them make their 5% spread. Why don't you at least make it? So that's kind of was my take on saying, hey, there's better ways to invest your money.
Yeah. Well, and it's really fun is that whenever I was talking to you, I don't know, probably about a month ago or something like that, we talked a little bit about lending money and how that works and all that stuff. We just kind of keep running into the same conversation. But I have $30,000 of liquid that I have in just in a pile. People have invested it with me because I bought real estate with it.
Sure.
And then I'm just utilizing that to get some other real estate deals done, putting some upfront capital and getting it back. So I've been able to turn it twice.
Excellent.
And I only owe them 8% in 6 months, and I've flipped it at 10%.
They're making a spread
twice.
There you go.
So very happy about it.
What I'm looking at is something that the IRS specifically says you can do. I mean, and just the backstory, and people never really talk about this, but I looked it up. So ERISA is the Employees Retirement and Income Securities Act. of 1974. And basically companies like GM and GE, big companies, big ticket, Ford, they had people that had worked at Ford for 30 years, and they could project, just like Social Security is going to be insolvent in a certain number of years because there's too many baby boomers on it. People are living longer, and they're getting these defined benefits. And it was never meant to be a retirement program. Regardless of your politics, it's something's going to need to be done, or it's going to run out of money. So GM and big companies like that saw that happening back in the 70s, and they petitioned Congress, and Congress changed the law and made it so they did not have to give a defined retirement. In other words, you worked here for 30 years, people got a defined benefit of $1,500 a month or $1,000 a month as their pension. And so the pension plans went away, and they were replaced by IRAs and 401ks, and said, hey, we've got this other avenue. We're going to give you the money we would invest to make your retirement. And instead, we're going to give you a lump of cash in your 401k or other similar retirement accounts. And when they did that, now that alleviated big airlines, big car manufacturers, big companies from having to give a pension.
Right.
And so there's few places you can go to work now where you actually get a real pension where, hey, you work here 20, 30 years, we're going to give you $1,000 a month for the rest of your life, or whatever your pension would be. So back then, that's when it started. So that the tax code was ERISA, changing that plan, defining these new plans. And they outlined the rules for how you could invest that. So the downside is it gave all these poor old guys, a guy's turning a wrench at Ford or GM for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years. And now, hey, go invest this. What? I don't know how to do that.
What do you mean invest this?
I'm not a professional. So
what do you mean?
So post 1974, people had to we're supposed to know how to invest it themselves.
Interesting.
So that's kind of where the genesis of that program. But now as in real estate investors, when you look at the code and say that you can invest in precious metals or buy real estate or notes, tax liens, you can invest in businesses. You can buy a business with your LLC. You can't buy collectibles. You can't buy insurance policies or things like that. But you could buy a brewery, and you can't buy wine or art, but you could buy a brewery and it makes beer and sells it, and you make money in your IRA. So I mean, it's just the limits are kind of endless as far as it follows the rules that are set forth. You can do a lot of cool investments.
That's awesome.
So I would, if it was in the gray area, I would say no, because the risk for the IRS saying, hey, you made too much money doing something we don't like.
Right.
So it outlines so many cool ways to do it. There's no reason to do something in a great area.
Totally. So I was talking about just private money.
Yeah.
Versus IRA.
And I'm not, and like I said before, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA, and I'm certainly not going to give legal advice.
You just know how you make money, right?
But I think this is a great opportunity that people could do that they don't explore. They're used to Schwab or the other big companies, Fidelity, that give them, hey, they can buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, but there's 5 other things they're allowed to do in their investment account, their retirement account.
So what's a thing that you really want people to take away from this? Because man, you had everybody just zeroed in listening to you, because it's something that as real estate investors, we know about it. We hear it, we see it, we know people that do it. And obviously I know you do it.
Sure.
And this is just blowing these guys away. They're 8 to 5ers.
Right. Well, the thing I would say is if you're an investor and you're looking for capital, there's always capital out there. You don't have to go to a bank to get your capital. There's someone you know. And it may not be in an IRA, necessarily a retirement account, but you know people that want to get a better return than a CD. And particularly people that are, and I'm not saying necessarily go to your grandparents, but just by talking about what you do and knowing that you're successful and repetition of being with people and building rapport. And you just mentioned how, hey, I work with this investor that he loaned me money, and he was my first position on this rental property I bought. And he loaned me $25,000 to buy a house that's worth $50,000, but I got it for a good discounted deal. I rehabbed it with my money, so I've got 30 or 40 into it. It's worth $50,000. And he asked them, hey, he loaned me $25,000. So if I got hit by a bus or in a tragic blimp accident tomorrow, if he had to foreclose on me and I didn't make my payments, he's got a $50,000 asset that he can foreclose on, and you just, hey, take the loan, give it to the foreclosure attorney, and you'll have this house back and make all your money plus some back.
Yeah.
So
very secure.
Regardless of whether it's with in your IRA or your retirement account, just loaning money that's cash in a savings account or under a mattress, there's no reason that you can't develop relationships. And the funny thing is you meet somebody who loans you something small, and you do right and do what you said you were going to do, and do everything you said you were going to do is the big thing. And make sure that you follow through on exactly what you said your word is, that miraculously that person has friends that say, hey, How do I get on this loan?
Right.
Or that they don't have 25, they've got 500,000. Hey, I've got this other money I'd like to invest. Do you have any other projects coming up? That type of thing will happen just by being a good business person that does what you say, and you just live by the golden rule, man.
Yeah,
and it makes it work pretty well.
Absolutely. One thing I always tell people, and a lot of the guys here will, back me up on that, is the fact that if you want to make money, answer your phone and do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, good point.
I mean, answering the phone is a pretty big deal these days because people have so much social anxiety, or I don't know. I answer my phone. Let's just spam on there. I don't, but.
Well, I have a limitation. If I'm flying, I don't answer my phone.
Yeah, but that's fair.
But I do ask that people leave me a message or text me because that's the best thing, because you want to get back to them.
Absolutely.
Get back to them on a timely basis. Don't skip that.
Yeah.
That's the base hits you're going to miss.
Yep, absolutely. And just getting those base hits. So one thing that was really interesting with the 401k thing is that you can only put so much into it, like of your own income into it. But after that, you can take that and you can grow it exponentially. I think about wholesaling. It's like, well, if you just hotel the house, or even if you just did the contract work and you just piled it right back into it. I mean, I could throw $100,000 a year into IRA just from wholesaling.
Sure, and I do know that. I mean, I would certainly get advice on how much you should do that, because at some point it is an active job, and that's not something I do on a regular basis because I just don't have time to find deals like that, like you might. But at some point, it's going to be looked at as you're doing a job inside your IRA. So the IRS does have some kind of guidelines for that. So the custodians that do this, like Equity Trust, so there's a bunch. I could probably rattle off 5. Quest, and there's a few others. All of them will have guidance. Some more conservative, some less. On, hey, if you keep doing this, it could flag as you're doing too much work in your IRA.
Yeah,
because they want to make sure it's not a huge unfair advantage to someone who's working a 9 to 5 doing the same thing you're doing.
Gotcha.
Because that person, another wholesaler, if they're wholesaling full time, they're paying taxes on that money. Whereas if you're doing it in your IRA, you're not going to pay taxes on it right now, or you may, or if it's in your Roth, you might be paying. Depending on how you do it, you might pay tax.
Right.
So the goal would be to, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Yes.
So, 1 or 2 deals, throw that in your IRA, and then, the rest you're doing in your regular job.
What about like flips? Would that be kind of the same thing?
Yeah. So I've heard a rule that no more than about 1 a year for doing it in your IRA, because that's a real easy one that looks like a business to do a flip. So, so I've done flips with my IRA, but I don't do them every year. So I didn't do one at all this year. So, it's not my regular job. And so it's not, I don't want in any way to be looked at as that's, working in your IRA.
That's interesting. Well, you can lend all the money you want to against it.
But yeah, I mean, lending that's why I like it, because it makes it easy. Yeah, it's just, that's the niche, and I rinse and repeat.
Right. So, find it and do it and get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cool.
And the cool thing about it too is you can partner. So that's what I really like, is that if you don't, the biggest thing that guys asked tonight was, hey, if you don't have a lot of money in your account because you're starting small, so it's really easy to invest in the stock market with just a minimal amount. Well, you can partner with someone else and say, like I was giving an example, if it's a $100,000 loan, people only have 10 or 5. Well, they partner with someone who's got the 95, and you guys are percentage owners. So one person has 5% of the note, the other person has the 95%. But together, you make that $100,000 loan to that person. You just made a deal for them, and you're their mortgage bank.
Right.
You're their lender. So you have a note and a mortgage. The mortgage gets recorded with the title company. You've got title insurance. You've got hazard insurance. So if the house burns down or the roof gets destroyed, you're going to get paid out as the lender.
Right.
So you'll get your money.
Do you cover that cost, like if they're doing the flip or whatever with the money? Do you cover the cost of the insurance to make sure that you're protected?
No. So at the closing, I make sure that before I let the closing happen, I tell the title company they're cleared to close. Because the funds go to the title company, I demand that they show me the closing statement, so I have the title policy on my accountant's name.
Okay.
And then I make sure that the borrower purchases hazard insurance, and that the insurance company contacts me and tells me that I'm listed either as the lost payee or the mortgagee. So that way my account's going to get money first.
Okay.
And then anything left over then goes to the borrower.
Okay. Gotcha.
Just like a normal bank would do.
Right. Man, that's fantastic. There's so much to it, and I'm really excited about getting to know more.
Sure, man. I mean, it's not as complicated. It sounds complicated, but it's something that people do every time they buy a house.
Once you have the paperwork, like, you're fine.
Yeah, that's true. And you pay an attorney and it works, and you buy a software to do the mortgage calculation, and there you go. So it's like I'm not reinventing the wheel.
Right. I like to tell people I don't reinvent the wheel, or I didn't invent the wheel. I just like to take it from like a regular street tire to like a race car tire. Like put some better rubber on it, right?
Yeah.
So, Andy, thank you so much for coming down here, hanging out with us, sharing your piece of just wisdom and knowledge, because you're probably going to get bombarded the rest of the weekend.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
So it's
look forward to
wonderful.
helping.
So, man, so thankful that you came on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yep.